Today I want to talk to you about infections. Infections of all kinds, bacterial, viral, fungal, and metals. How metals, simple metals like copper and silver, can treat infections. This has been done for thousands of years. But, we discovered antibiotics back in the 40s. And so these old tried and true methods have got put aside and seldom used or even thought of anymore. But Dr. Robert Becker, example here, he was not only a physician, but he was a researcher and a brilliant scientist. And he was treating a patient. He wrote the book Bioelectrode, and in this book he writes about this experience and how he was introduced to bioelectricity. But he was treating a Vietnam War vet for a gangrenous infection in his femur, in his leg. And this poor fella had been in the hospital for about a year, and nothing was able to treat this infection. And anyway, they were about to amputate, but Dr. Becker, in his inspirational moment, he thought, well, he would try this. What he did was open up the cast, placing electrodes on either side of the wound site, the infection, and generating an electrical current. And in a very short time, that infection started to clear. And a short time after that, that poor fella, well, lucky fella, walked out of the hospital on 2 strong limbs. So there you go. He went on to, do much more research. He was treating diabetic ulcers, bed sores, all kinds of infections. And just by using, in fact, what he did ultimately, he developed a dressing, a nylon dressing, which the threads were silver threads. And so for burns and other infection wounds and so on, they would just apply the dressing. And what happens when you do that? The moisture from the body itself and from the wound site, the silver ions travel down into there and clear that infection of all kinds, even the flesh-eating variety of infections, which is causing so much amputations and so on nowadays. Because once you get that bug, let's face it, hospitals are known for their rates of infection. They're just infection buildings, and you go in there for some problem, and before you know it, you have an infection which you didn't have before. But thanks to Robert, he patented that little device. Now it's used in all these dressings are used in almost every hospital, every progressive hospital. On another note, copper. Let's talk about copper. 5 years ago, during the COVID epidemic, a corporation got together with Vancouver Coastal Health, one of our health authorities here, and they conducted a pilot study to see how copper railings and copper grab bars and so on would work on our transit bus system. The poles that would keep you stable as you walked in, or the grab bars anywhere around, the seating and so on. They coated them with copper. And what they found out was that they had over, I think it was a 50% reduction in the rate of infections as a result of using copper bars and wherever you touched metal and so on. They would leave their fingerprints, plus they would leave a little residue of infectious material which you picked up when you grabbed that bar, and before you know it, you touched your face or your nose or whatever, and there you go. You're going to work and coming back with some infection. So hospitals using them in elevator buttons and grab bars and bed railings and so on. It's simple, and what is the cost of these infections, of losing a limb or getting COVID or just picking up pneumonia or whatever, doing any kind of surgical intervention and getting that infection. We can use these silver dressings. We can use all kinds of different ways of treating them with simple metals. curbing the transmission of these viruses and bacteria and so on. Back in 1999, I learned Korean hand therapy, and they were using at the time aluminum and copper. And I began, they were using them as electrodes. And since then, I've treated hundreds, literally hundreds of tooth pain, including myself. Here's an example. In Korean hand therapy, the whole body is represented on the hand. The legs, the arms, and the head. So the whole face is right there. So here you've got two little dots, because for a period of time I was tattooing these silver metals into my body, hoping, but it's a little too dangerous. I'm not doing that anymore. But anyway, I would just place, at that time I was using aluminum, placing them on these points. And what that would do, it would instantly curb the pain of the infected tooth. And using another microsystem, I would put a little aluminum or silver on a point that corresponds to your upper and lower jaw, right there, on the outer part of the ear there. And the left side for the left hand, and the right side for the right side, or the right toothache. But I could identify a tooth pain or an infection anywhere in the body, and simply what meridian is going through that area of infection. If I had an infection in my shoulder, for example, all I would have to do is identify the meridian, say it was here. Oh, well, large intestine meridian. I could put a silver here and a copper here, just above on the meridian, and it would create a strong electrical field and rapidly treat that infection or the pain or the swelling, because it's the electrical field that does the trick. I used to believe that it is the silver ions as well. If you put this, if I put a silver dressing on there, the silver ions would penetrate into this infection and treat it that way. But I could just use this way too. Silver, copper. And then creating a strong electrical field due to the short distance between the electrodes. Electrical field stimulates the cell membrane of the tissues, all the tissues there, opens up ion-gated channels, balances the electrolytes, all the potassium, sodium, calcium, and so on would be balanced inside and outside the cell, and pH as well, and stimulate the mitochondria, generating the healing ATP, as well as generating nitric oxide. So the whole metabolic process for treating arthritis, infections, and so on, simply by generating a microcurrent between them, and almost immediately relieving pain. So all these different methods, dressings, stabilizing poles, coating them with copper. We have to wake up. Antibiotics are not doing what they used to do. And infections, whether they're from COVID or, it's just a matter of time before we have another epidemic of some kind of virus. Could be from a monkey or a chicken or a pig or whatever. But it's inevitable. And so we can act now by adopting some of these ancient methods. The Romans used to take a coin, a silver coin, and throw it in the well. And that would purify the water. The simple silver ions would be dispersed within that well water and kill the virus and the bacteria and so on. The Romans would do the same for their wine. They would put silver into the cask of wine or even milk or any beverage, and it would kill the infectious pathogens. I could go on. Let's see, maybe I will go on. Let's see what else. The Romans, Dr. Becker patented his dressing there, and now it's used in every hospital, most hospitals, progressive hospitals. They use catheters. Anything that's going to enter the body, they use silver-coated catheters, for example, and that will treat any infections from a catheter, because that would be a typical routine infection. The IUDs for women, they're made of copper. Again, eliminating an infection right there, the copper on contact with the IUD. And so, and those are left in the body for long periods of time. So, copper's not. Both these things are biocompatible metals. Biocompatible meaning they're friendly metals. They don't cause, well, unless you have an allergy. Sometimes people have allergies from copper, but it's rare. And you can just do a simple test before you actually adopt any of these methods. But, grab bars, hospitals, buses, everywhere. Every public setting could be using these things, and we would be a healthier society for it. But anyway, that's pretty much a wrap, and it's something to consider. City council should be considering this. Politicians should be considering this. Healthcare professionals, doctors should be looking at this as another alternative method rather than overusing antibiotics. It's a tried and true. Well, go check it out yourself. Google silver or copper for treating infections. You'll find amazing, fascinating history of using these metals. But anyway, that's a wrap. Thank you for staying and being curious. Check it out. Overcome your skepticism. Check out these integrative alternative therapies. There's something going on there. Thank you. Bye now.